back to the show. You're watching NHL Now. Well, I think it's safe to say you know you're a big deal when you make headlines not once, but twice in about a 12-hour period. Yeah. Jack Eichel, first the conversation started after this tweet from Elliotte Friedman. Jack Eichel admits he's upset about the way things have been handled since his injury, says there's been a bit of a disconnect between him and the Sabres. We bring Elliotte Friedman on to join us now to talk about this further. And now we heard earlier in the show from Jack Eichel, who was asked about this, and he talked about looking out for Jack Eichel and the Sabres looking out for the Sabres. So, Elliotte, I'll start with this question. How much tension is there between this club and their star player right now, based on what you've heard?
Mike, who is the angriest guy you ever fought in the National Hockey League?
The angriest?
Yes.
Oh man, there's been a few angry ones. Cold Moore was pretty angry.
Okay, so let's say Jackie will say there's about as much tension as right before a Michael Rupp Colton Orr fight. Like, that's probably the right way to answer it. You know, I think that this has been boiling over for a little bit of time. Basically, what happened, I understand, and Eichel has gone public with it today, is that Eichel wants to have a certain path done to his recovery, and the team disagrees with it. Now, Eichel was asked today on the Zoom call, is it basically not your choice? Like, it's your body, your choice. And, you know, Jackie, last year when the CBA between the league and the players was updated before the return to play, there was a change made to the way second opinions are decided. Players are allowed to do a second opinion. The teams must forward all information, and the teams can take that second opinion into account. But the teams, the way it reads, and we'll see if this goes to any kind of arbitration, but the way it reads, the teams have that choice. So it looks to me like Eichel has definitely gone and had a second opinion. We know that. He has presented that as an option, and to this point, he's been told no. And he is upset. He is frustrated, as he showed, because I think one of the issues is, from what I understand, he believes if he has a procedure done as soon as possible, he'll be more ready to play at the start of next season. And I think the path he believes the Sabres want him to take, he might not be ready for the start of next year. So all of that is part of the issue here.
Wow, that's a lot to digest for sure. It seems for the fan at home and for the viewer, they're probably thinking like, you're dealing with your own body, that you should be able to make the decision. Obviously, you bring up CBA points here, which were important, and the teams pay a lot of money to these guys, so certainly they should have, I guess, some say in all this. But it seems like to me what you're saying is that this is almost an obstacle or a impasse that cannot really be solved, and that might lead to him being moved. I mean, is that accurate to read that?
You know, EJ, I think we all felt it was been heading in that direction anyway. That, you know, I mean, this was really rare today. Like, Jack Eichel didn't put this out through sources or anything like that. He went on a Buffalo Sabres Zoom call, end-of-year Zoom call, and laid it all out there. And as a reporter, I can't knock that. Like, you know, we can't say that people that we don't want them to be honest and then rip them for being honest. As a team, I probably could have done without that today, but I think we all recognize that this has been heading in that direction. This is probably the final straw. I don't understand how anybody could look at this and say today that they see a path for Jack Eichel being with the Buffalo Sabres in that uniform you're showing on screen next season. And I think that they're going to talk about it. I think they've already talked to other teams about it. I think around the deadline, they were doing research on what the worth of him is. And I think they will put it out there right now that we're open and we're going to talk about it. And if you're interested in Jack Eichel, give us a call. I think these conversations are really going to get going now, even more than they were already.
Well, Elliotte, I'm going to transition this to the New York Rangers, but we might be able to link these two stories pretty soon also. So that might be something to monitor down the road. But what are you hearing on the New York Rangers front is, you know, we're hearing some David Quinn may be there. He may not be there. Do you think that this, you know, just even this market of coaches right now, does that feed into it at all? I mean, there's a lot of good coaches out there.
Well, what I think, Michael, is that, Chris Drury and the Sabres have made it pretty clear that they're going to listen to what their players have to say. I'm not expecting an announcement today. I'm not even convinced we're going to see an announcement tomorrow. I think they're going to take a couple of days and think about it and then announce their decision either way, if David Quinn is back or he's not. And I do think it's possible that they will look at and say, okay, and they should. I mean, to be perfectly honest, a team with the Rangers, where we now know the expectation is that they are expected to be a playoff team next year, I think it's very important to sit there and say, well, okay, if we're going to make a coaching change, are we sure that we're going to be able to go out there and get someone better? So I don't think the Rangers are going to be making a coaching change unless they know what is available and that it can make them better. And I think that's part of this decision-making process for sure. There are some experienced coaches out there. You've got them on your screen right now. A couple of them who just became available in the last couple of days, a couple of them who are already out there. So I think the Rangers will take this all into account. When it comes to Eichel, New York was a team that made an offer for Eichel last year. And from what I understand, it was an offer that really made the Sabres think. And ultimately, they didn't do it because they said, we're not ready to do this at this time. Obviously, 12 months later, it's different. I think they are going to be ready, and I think the Rangers are going to be in there. I think there's going to be a lot of teams in there, Michael, and a lot of teams that maybe we don't think of. But one of the things I do believe is that the Rangers are going to be among the teams in the best position, if not the best position, to do it. I think the question is going to be, are the Sabres going to twist themselves into a knot to not send them there?
Well, I'll ask you about a former head coach of the New York Rangers in John Tortorella, who has parted ways with the Columbus Blue Jackets. From what I've read, he still wants to coach in the National Hockey League. So my question for you is, are there still teams out there that like the flavor that John Tortorella brings to the table? Because he is an acquired taste for some. I happen to be a fan. I'm just wondering what his attractiveness is as a head coach at this time.
Well, I think what you're going to see, first of all, yes, he does want to coach. I've heard that directly. He does want to coach next year. I think that, Jackie, there's going to be two kinds of hires here. I think there's going to be the Arizona kind of hire where they're already indicating they're going young because they're rebuilding. And then I think it's going to be the teams that are in it to win it, and they're going to want somebody like a Tortorella who can win it for you and can drive a team. I will say this. A year ago, I think Tortorella and the Blue Jackets were thinking after the bubble, is it time? And those players fought for him to come back. Most of the players on that team said that they wanted him back, and that's one reason that he came back. So I still think that there are players who believe he can help them. I think there are teams who can believe he can help them. I think that I wouldn't be surprised if Buffalo makes a coaching change, if he wouldn't mind going back there. But I think that it is a team that it needs to be ready to win and has veterans who can help the young players handle him.
Elliotte, I want to get back to this Eichel Rangers thing because that's the stuff I like, is potential deals.
Because you love the Rangers.
I love this. Well, I have to say that was really never in my resume, but I will continue nonetheless. Is that if the Rangers are going to do this, right? If Buffalo, it's going to be worthwhile for Buffalo. I mean, they're going to have to get some significant pieces back. We know that the Rangers have a real stockpile of young talent there. There's no question about that. But from a salary cap standpoint, you have Panarin at, I think, 11.5. You have Trouba at 8. Do you have to try to include someone like Trouba in this deal if it were to happen to make it happen? And if that's the case, I don't think Trouba is all that interested in going to Buffalo after signing a long-term deal with the Rangers. So I'm looking at it from a cap standpoint. What are the problems for the Rangers in terms of acquiring someone like Eichel with the cap circumstance they have moving forward? Even though I have a lot of young players that are making less, they still have some guys making a lot.
I do believe that. You're right. But I always look at it this way, EJ. If Jack Eichel becomes available and you can get him, you sort it out. Like look at this guy. He's still in the prime of his life. He's a young guy. You know that any team that trades for him, he's going to be coming out like gangbusters next year. Like he is going to be on fire to have a big year. Now, are you concerned about his health? that's what you have the doctors for, to tell you, okay, is there anything to worry about here? He seems to think if he gets whatever he wants to get done, he's going to be ready to play. You just make sure that that's the case. I look at it this way. If you can get him, you get him, and then you solve the other problems. I mean, if you look at the Rangers, their biggest decisions are probably a year away. Zibanejad, Adam Fox. So you have time. I mean, Lou Lamoriello would probably hate to hear his rules applied to the New York Rangers, but if you have time, use it, and that's the way I'd look at it.
All right, well, I'm sure we'll be talking plenty about Jack Eichel in the coming weeks. Thanks for this, Elliotte. We appreciate the time.
All right, guys, have yourselves a great week.